on this issue. It is time to end this White House cover-up now. Now, we know that Donald Trump has tried everything to kill our Jeffrey Epstein investigation, and he's failed. And now he's panicking. He's about to lose his Epstein vote to force the Department of Justice to release the files. And let's be crystal clear. Trump has the power to release the files today. He does not even need a vote. And he continues to defy the subpoena of the Oversight Committee to release all the files. What is Donald Trump hiding? What is Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, hiding? Why won't they release the Epstein files right now? And he must explain to the public why he moved sex trafficker and monster Ghislaine Maxwell to a cushy, low-security prison after her interview with Trump's personal lawyer. He should declare, and every Republican should say, that she does not deserve a pardon or a commutation.
The gentleman's time has expired.
30 more seconds.
I grant him 20 more seconds.
We don't care how much money you have, what party you're in, how powerful you are. We should get justice for the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein. And our work on the committee is not over. Next up are the bank and financial records to follow and expose Epstein's network. Today, there should be a unanimous vote on releasing the files, and we will get justice. And with that, I yield back.
And we reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield a minute and a half to the distinguished gentleman from California and member of the Judiciary Committee, Mr. Kiley.
The gentleman from California is recognized.
I have consistently called for the maximum possible level of transparency when it comes to the heinous crimes of Jeffrey Epstein. That's why I've consistently said I am inclined to vote for this bill, and it's why I will be doing so today. The victims deserve the truth. They deserve justice, and they deserve closure. For months, they've had to wake up every day and see the name of their tormentor on the front page of every newspaper, on every TV channel, as has the broader American public. This issue has been so politicized by so many people in so many ways, which is deeply unfortunate when we're talking about matters of the highest sensitivity and untold suffering. It is my hope that the passage of this resolution today, together with the work of the Oversight Committee, will lead to the expeditious release of all pertinent material so that we can move on. Let's get accountability, let's get answers, and let's get this over with. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman reserves.
Yeah, we reserve.
The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
I yield 1 minute to the very distinguished gentlelady from Washington, a member of the Judiciary Committee.
The gentlelady from Washington is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, thousands of girls, children, were abused by Jeffrey Epstein and his massive and powerful ring of pedophiles and protectors of pedophiles. We can't say all their names here. We don't have time. But let's at least bring a few of the courageous survivors and their names onto the House floor right here as we debate this. Haley Robson, Jenna Lisa Jones, Michelle Licata, Ashley Rubright, Annie Farmer, Marina Lacerda, Rachel Benavides. These women have carried a burden that they never should have had to bear. And today, they demand, we demand, the American people demand that we answer their clarion call to justice. Today, despite all the giant cover-up attempts by this administration and this Speaker of the House, we will vote to release all the Epstein files. To be clear, there is no protection for pedophiles, no protection for the rich and powerful men of either party who participated, who turned a blind eye, who winked and grinned while witnessing the horrific abuses of young children. Release all the damn files now.
We reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield a minute and a half to the distinguished gentleman from North Carolina and member of our committee.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have been very supportive of this effort, specifically to bring justice to the victims of this horrific series of crimes. However, I have worked behind the scenes to raise concerns with this petition as it is currently drafted. Specifically, I believe that there is grave risk at harming innocent people, and I repeat, harming innocent people, When innocent people are harmed, that is not furthering justice. With an investigation of this size and a file that is as large as the Epstein files and as poorly defined as that is in this petition, there will invariably be people who are released pursuant to this discharge petition who had nothing to do with criminal activity. Imagine, if you will, a bellman, a waiter, some type of doorman, a mere social attendee who had no impact whatsoever on the criminal activities of Jeffrey Epstein, no participation. Their lives are forever ruined. And I'm reading specifically from the petition's language that prohibited grounds for withholding information in this file are embarrassment, reputational harm, or political sensitivity. And I would just submit, if you were going to be embarrassed, if you were going to suffer social harm, and that is all of the encompassed activity that you were a part of, you will be named in this petition. And I resent that. Innocent people should not be harmed when we are pursuing justice. I understand the political nature of this petition. I resent the fact that there was not room for good faith amendments. And I urge the Senate to protect innocent people. I yield back.
Yields back. The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Thank you. I'm yielding 1 minute to the distinguished gentlelady from California, Representative Kamlager-Dove.
The gentlelady from California is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, 1 in 3 women and girls around the world are physically and sexually assaulted each year. Of the 152 women in this body, that means 51 women. It includes your daughters, your sisters, your nieces, your mothers. And with the Epstein files, we have a chance to change that. But real talk, the administration doesn't need a discharge petition. It has not complied with the subpoena, and it has the power to release the files today. Instead, the man in the most powerful position in the world has used the full weight of the government to block and obfuscate and deflect the full release of the files. It is the same person who intimidated female members of Congress to withdraw names from the petition, who responded quiet piggy to a female reporter who asked about the files, and who nominated an alleged sexual predator to be our AG. It is the same person whose name appears more than any other in the Epstein emails. And in the pantheon of violence, a sexual predator is the worst of the worst, so why protect him? It's also curious that the judiciary is managing this debate and has not even had this come before the committee. I wonder why. Release the files now!
We reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Roy, chairman of the Constitution Subcommittee.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
I thank the chairman. Today, a united Republican Party and a bipartisan supermajority is going to pass a bill to increase transparency regarding the egregious abuses by Jeffrey Epstein, a goal that anyone of conscience desires. That is, in totality, an important statement to check the rich and the powerful. Remember how we got here. After decades, it was President Trump's Department of Justice that indicted Jeffrey Epstein in July of 2019. It was President Trump's DOJ that arrested and indicted Ms. Maxwell. It was the Republican-led Oversight Committee, through 13 subpoenas, that has released 65,000 pages of files in just 10 months. Meanwhile, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle have largely ignored this issue. It was Democrats who redacted an email to mislead the American people about the truth of a witness that exonerated President Trump. It was a Democrat, Representative Placette, who literally texted with Jeffrey Epstein as we questioned Michael Cohen. It was Democrats who shut down the government, resulting in the delay of swearing in of members. As we vote to pass this legislation, and it will pass, it is impossible, however, to avoid problems with its politicization. One colleague has offensively gone so far as to say that to oppose this bill means you support pedophiles. Yet I know good public servants, former law enforcement, former prosecutors who never knew Epstein, never knew any visitors to his criminal enterprise, who have genuine concerns about supporting this bill out of fear of creating new victims or harming existing victims, or both. That is what we've reduced Congress to, inserting itself into the prosecutorial process for political motivations, driven heavily by hatred of President Trump. We should be concerned about victim privacy, concerned about risking disclosure of non-credible allegations, of child sexual abuse materials, future investigations. But here's the deal. The leaders of this nation must expose abuses by the rich and the powerful. That is why President Trump and the House have been working for full transparency. But we should be motivated by truth and justice for all, not politics. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Thank you. I yield 1 minute to the distinguished gentlelady from Massachusetts, Representative Clark, the Minority Whip.
The gentlelady is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This should be an easy vote. This is about justice for the victims and survivors of Jeffrey Epstein. This is about every victim of trafficking and sexual abuse, monstrous crimes that thrive in secrecy and fear. Yet instead of shining a light on that darkness, just moments ago, Donald Trump defended the continued obstruction of releasing these files. Even as House Republicans prepare to vote yes today, Speaker Johnson is calling this a show vote. He's calling it dangerous. He is signaling the U.S. Senate to block it. Republicans continue to use their power to shield rich pedophiles from justice. If you can't stand up for these survivors, how can anyone trust you to stand up for them? I yield back.
The gentlelady yields back.
We yield.
The gentleman reserves. Does the gentleman reserve?
Yeah, we reserve.
The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
We reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Yes, just very quickly, what happened under the Biden administration? Well, under the Biden administration, Ghislaine Maxwell was prosecuted for conspiring to sexually abuse and traffic girls in 2020. Right when it's in 2021, she was convicted. In December of 2021, after a month-long trial in Judge Nathan's courtroom, in 2022, Maxwell was sentenced to 20 years in prison under the Biden administration for sex trafficking and sexual abuse of minors. But when President Trump took office in January of 2025, they killed the investigation. They assembled all the materials, they got all the prosecutors together, and they terminated the investigation. I yield 1 minute to the distinguished gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Raja Krishnamurthy.
The gentleman from Illinois is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in strong support to release the Epstein files. First, this issue is beyond party. It's a question of justice. Survivors have waited too long. Stop the delay. This is not a hoax. Release the files. Second, we must face a hard truth. Silence that shields the powerful is a betrayal of those they hurt. Congress must reject any attempt, including a presidential pardon or any form of clemency for Ghislaine Maxwell. This cannot be done. This would be a cover-up. We cannot allow clemency of any kind for Maxwell, not now, not ever. Survivors deserve justice. I urge a strong yes vote. Thank you.
Yields back.
I want to thank the gentleman for his eloquent remarks. Pardons are for people who are contrite. Pardons are for people who are repentant. Pardons are not for people who lie. Every member of this body should immediately, verbally, vocally denounce the idea of clemency, commutation, or pardon for Ghislaine Maxwell, and we reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Yeah, we reserve, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman reserves.
I yield 30 seconds to Ms. Leisure Fernandez.
The gentlelady is recognized.
There were thousands of girls and young women abused, trafficked, and used by Epstein, the elite and the powerful who believed they could get away with it. Epstein told the young victims that he controlled the banks and the government. Those women refused to be silenced, and today they have pierced the dark with their light. Anytime any girl is trafficked, molested, or abused, the world must stand up. Today, the House proves Jeffrey Epstein wrong. The Senate must do the same tomorrow.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from California. 1.5 minutes to the gentleman from California.
The gentleman from California is recognized.
I thank you, Chairman. Mr. Speaker, a minute and a half or an hour, the words would still have to be the same. We've all said that this will pass the House, perhaps unanimously today. I think all of us who have looked at the details of this particular bill know that it is flawed and that before it goes to the President's desk, it has to be amended as it can be amended in the Senate. And we call on the Senate to amend it so that we protect the innocent, so that we have the provisions that were intended perhaps to be in this bill but are not properly written. With that, President Trump has said, get it to his desk, he will sign it. President Trump has said he will do it. But I'm going to say to all of us, it is also important that we remember that Epstein is dead, but people live on, people who were innocent, people who in fact should not be named. We're not talking about the rich and the powerful, we're talking about the very victims. That is what we need to make sure is amended before it goes to the president's desk. And with that, I thank the chairman for his time. I think no more needs to be said that this body will vote for it all, but let's not kid ourselves. It has to be changed so that it properly protects both the tradition of the grand jury and clearly those innocent people that would otherwise be swept up. And I yield back.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman yields back.
Reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
This whole bill is about protecting the innocent. Mr. Speaker, the Senate must pass the bill as we are passing it today and as the President has said he would sign it after changing his position on the bill over the weekend when he could see the tidal wave of public opinion moving against him. Let's pass this bill, pass it in the Senate, sign the bill, and let us go ahead and release the complete file. I yield 30 seconds to the distinguished gentlelady from Arizona, Representative Ansari.
The gentlelady is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, the walls are closing in on Donald Trump and his rich and powerful friends who either abused or raped children or were enabling and complicit in these heinous crimes for decades. This vote today matters, but here is the truth. Donald Trump could direct the Department of Justice to release the files today. He is choosing not to. They are already under subpoena, led by oversight Democrats, and have refused. This is an ongoing cover-up by the Trump White House, and Mike Johnson in the House has been complicit. What is Trump hiding? Why not release the files today? This is a
time has expired.
Release the files today. Thank you.
The gentlelady's time has expired. The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield 2 minutes to the distinguished gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Van Drew.
The gentleman from New Jersey is recognized.
Today I want to talk about hypocrisy. Let me be clear. I was from Jumpstart, a co-sponsor of this very bill. From the beginning, we should never protect pedophiles. But for months, my Democratic colleagues have done what they think is politically convenient through all the yelling, through all the tears, through all the sadness. They say releasing the Epstein list is of grave concern to them. If that was true, where were they during the 4 years of the Biden presidency? Why didn't they demand the release of these files from Jumpstart in year 1? Mr. Speaker, why didn't they ask for them in year 2? Or if that wasn't good enough, maybe in year 3. They had control, or not even in his final year of office. Other than a single letter the ranking member wrote in 2019, a single letter, not one Democrat on the committee spoke out about Epstein or his victims of this very terrible tragedy, other than to say that he didn't like the plea deal. Let me say this. When they stand here today insisting how badly they want these files released, why didn't they do it? Yet they stayed silent for year after year after year after year under Joe Biden. It's impossible. Mr. Speaker, it is impossible to see that as genuine. What I see is a group more focused on scoring political points and drama than on protecting abused children. The record is clear. Under Republicans, far more information has been released in the last 6 months than was done during all 4 years of the previous presidency under Joe Biden. We've actually been the party of transparency. We've released the information. We've told the truth. Unfortunately, and I'm sad to say it, they have been the party of hypocrisy. Mr. Chair, I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
You know, I've never heard a more defensive presentation in my life than what we're hearing from over there. The gentleman should spend a little less time pointing out hypocrisy and a little more time trying to ferret out cruelty, humiliation, and rape. And that's what we're working on. I yield 30 seconds to the distinguished gentleman from California, Mr. Min.
The gentleman from California is recognized.
I want to remind you that we are all here voting on this bill because President Trump, who has the power to release the Epstein files at any time, has refused to do so, calling this a hoax. We're here because Speaker Mike Johnson and President Trump have gone to extraordinary lengths to try to kill and delay the discharge petition, including refusing to seat Adelita Grijalva for over 40 days and threatening House Republicans who signed on. Now, several of my Republican colleagues have accused those of us House Democrats who support justice here of having Trump derangement syndrome. You all suffer from something much worse, which is pedophile protection syndrome. Stop protecting pedophiles, release the Epstein files. The victims deserve justice. I yield back.
We reserve.
Members are reminded to direct their comments to the chair.
No kidding.
The
No.
gentleman from Maryland reserves. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
We reserve.
The gentleman from Ohio reserves. The gentleman from Maryland.
I'm yielding 30 seconds to my friend, Representative Walkinshaw from Virginia.
The gentleman is recognized.
For years, Mr. Speaker, we have watched dangerous conspiracies like Pizzagate and QAnon shape our political landscape. They help fuel the rise of President Trump and were built on baseless claims about secret pedophile rings, while the real documented case of child sex trafficking involving Jeffrey Epstein remained shrouded in secrecy because President Trump refuses to release the files. What is President Trump hiding? Why won't he release the files? The House finally has the opportunity to act, release the files, and let the American people see the truth. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back.
We reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
We reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Granting 30 seconds to the very distinguished gentlelady who is finally with us, Representative Adelita Grijalva from Arizona 7th.
The gentlelady is recognized.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to acknowledge the survivors, family members, and advocates who are here today and have never given up. The legislation in front of us, at its core, is about something very simple. The survivors deserve justice. The American people deserve the truth. To every survivor watching, your courage is inspiring. You are the reason why this vote is happening today. Protecting women and children from pedophiles should not be a Democratic issue, should not be a Republican issue. It should be a human rights issue and a matter of justice. I urge my colleagues to vote yes on the Epstein Files Transparency Act. I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you, and we reserve.
The chair will remind all persons in the gallery that they are here as guests of the House and that any manifestation of approval or disapproval of proceedings is in violation of the rules of the House. The gentleman from Maryland.
Yeah, but I'll just add, they're here as honored guests of the House, and we're delighted they're here, and with that, we reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Yeah, we reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Maryland.
I'm granting 30 seconds to Representative Lois Franco from Florida.
The gentlelady from Florida is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, for far too long, the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse were failed by a justice system that minimized their suffering and prosecutors who treated young girls as if they were criminals. That was wrong, and I am here with my colleagues to promise this. We will get to the bottom of why the Epstein survivors were treated so badly, who made those decisions, and who were they protecting. No more secrecy, no more excuses. We all deserve the truth, and I thank the survivors for their courage and perseverance. Your voices are being heard.
The gentlelady yields back. The gentleman reserves the balance of his time. The gentleman from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield 1 minute to the distinguished gentleman from the great state of Louisiana, the Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, Mr.
The gentleman from Louisiana is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Chairman Jordan, for doing such an extraordinary job on all of this. For 43 long days, the Democrats held this House and the entire country hostage. Finally, with the lights back on, this body's returning to our regular legislative session. We have a lot of work to do. My colleagues on this side of the chamber are ready and eager to get back to our urgent legislative work that we promised the American people we would do. We've got to continue lowering the cost of health care. We've got to bring down prices for American families, and we've got to finish the regular appropriations process, just to name a few of those priorities. And I wish I could say that our first order of business would be to get to those urgent priorities, but of course we're here spending time on the floor about something else. This is something we could have resolved last week when we brought a unanimous consent to pass this discharge with the full support of the body. But our friends over here who are arguing today stalled that. They objected to it, and they wanted to have this exercise instead. And that's why we say that this is a show vote. That's what this is. They're making a show of it. And it really is a shame. We have some heroic women in the chamber today. I met with many of them a while back. They're in the gallery here. They have come forward. They have shown their faces. They've used their names to share the unspeakable tragedies that many of them were subjected to, some of them when they were very young. And it is a heroic service to the country. They are seeking justice, and the justice has been delayed for too long. The Department of Justice, many years ago, should have brought these charges. It took too long to do it. And now we're in this process of making sure all the American people get the information, but we have to do it in the right way, After 4 years of Democrat control under President Biden, they were not truthful with us about a lot of things. The Democrats insisted the border was secure. We knew it wasn't. They insisted that inflation was transitory. We knew it wouldn't be. They misled the American people about the obvious mental and physical decline of the previous commander-in-chief. And now those same Democrats are demanding transparency. Suddenly, transparency is their new word. Out of nowhere, they've taken a curious concern in the Epstein investigation, all in the name of that, in the name of transparency. But the question has been asked here many times during the debate on the floor, and everybody questioning why it is that Democrats have done this right now have to look at the obvious facts. The Democrats had all the Epstein files in their possession for 4 long years under the Biden presidency. The Biden Department of Justice had these files, and no one on this side who is breathless today about the urgency of this release ever said a word about it. And it was the Democrats who could have urged President Biden's Department of Justice to go beyond prosecuting just Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, but they didn't do it. And so it's a fair question to ask today, why now? Why the sudden urgent interest in Jeffrey Epstein? Look, we know why. It's because the Democrats were never interested in transparency or executing justice or protecting the victims of this unspeakable tragedy before. The simple truth is obvious for everybody to see. This is a political exercise for Democrats, and it pains me to say it. I wish that was not the truth, but it is, and it's undeniable. This is as deceitful and dishonest as their pointless stunt was to shut the government down. Democrats are using the Epstein tragedy, the unspeakable evils that this guy committed with his trafficking ring and all of the abuses that they made these young women go through. They're using that as a political weapon to try to distract from their failures as a party and to try their best to try to tie President Trump somehow into this wretched scandal. The president had nothing to do with it. He's been very clear, and he has nothing to hide, and that's why he's endorsed the vote today. I suspect this vote will be probably unanimous. But here's the important point that everybody needs to understand. We have been advocates of maximum transparency, but we have also insisted that the victims be carefully protected. The Oversight Committee has been doing extraordinary work, and we've got some of the most vigorous advocates on the Republican and Democrat side on the Oversight Committee. They've been working in earnest to deliver transparency for the American people and to do it in a responsible manner. What do we mean by that? The bipartisan effort over there is already producing all the results that the discharge petition seeks and much, much more. Chairman Comer and all of these advocates over there have been releasing thousands of documents, for example, from the Epstein estate. By the way, in my view, that's been the greatest treasure trove of information because it's yielded for us Epstein's own personal flight logs, his financial records, his daily calendars, and so much more. But importantly, none of that was addressed or is addressed in the legislation that's being voted on today. The estate files wouldn't even have been encompassed in that. And so it goes to show that the Oversight Committee is doing it from the right way. From the very beginning, we've been insistent that this matter be handled carefully and with the utmost caution and care for the people who have been harmed. They should not be made to suffer any longer. We're talking about real people's lives at stake here, and young victims who don't want to be dragged into this political game that could get hurt further. But the Democrats are rushing the release of thousands of unsubstantiated documents that may be included in this, that are going to be in the public domain with the passage of this bill. And there are serious deficiencies in the legislation that I have noted at length, and Republicans have to work to address those deficiencies in the Senate if and when this legislation is advanced. I stood before the American public today at our press conference, and I explained in detail the dangers of the discharge petition. We have posted at my website, speaker.gov, a summary. The legal counsel, a small army of lawyers, put this together. I used to be a federal court litigator. Many of my colleagues who have spoken today were. We understand the dangers of how this was haphazardly drawn up. And among them, by the way, Mr. Speaker, before I forget, I seek unanimous consent to enter into this document into the record. It is that. It's on the website. It's entitled, How the Flaws of H.R. 4405 Could Re-Victimize Epstein's Victims, Create New Victims, and Damage the Judicial System. It is dated today. Thank you. And it summarizes just 5 or 6 of the major concerns. Among them, it fails to fully protect victim privacy. It could create new categories of victims. It potentially jeopardizes grand jury secrecy. It fails to prohibit release of child sexual abuse materials that are not appropriately defined in the legislation. It jeopardizes future federal investigations, and we have national security concerns regarding classified information. We'll put this in the record because we need the legislative record to reflect what is the legislative intent behind this vote. I used to litigate cases. We would litigate federal statutes and whether or not they could survive, and legislative intent is important, and we need to say clearly for the record, as the Speaker of the House, I'm saying to you, this legislation that will pass today is flawed and it must be amended. The question is, why didn't we amend it here before we passed it? Because the authors won't allow it. Because under the rules of the House, under a discharge petition, they have to agree to consent for the legislation to be amended, and they're not doing that. So now we rely upon our partners in the other chamber to get that done, and they need to do that. The victims deserve our utmost respect. In fact, they should be saluted for their courage. And the young women who have not come forward, who are now, some of them are middle-aged women who have not come forward, also deserve our respect, and they deserve to be protected. Republicans support transparency. We want maximum transparency, especially when it comes to disclosing the names of anybody who had anything to do with these evils, anybody who conspired with or aided in any way Jeffrey Epstein. They must be brought to justice. We want the bill to be amended so it doesn't, at the same time, violate victim privacy, create new victims, disclose the names of any whistleblower or informant, cause the release of grand jury materials or child sexual abuse materials, or undermine our national security. And if and when the Senate takes this up, we will work with our colleagues over there to make sure that these things are corrected. I'll just close with this simple thought. We've been at this a while. It's drug on for a while, but it's time for this to come to light. I expect that this will be a unanimous vote, and it will reflect what I think every member in this chamber, and I'll say this now, at least in recent days, every member of the chamber on the Democrat side, they didn't say anything for 4 years, but they're for maximum transparency now, and so is this side. But we want to do it in a respectful and careful manner so that we don't subject innocent people to further harm. And that has been the whole thing. I told all my members today I'll be voting yes on this, and I suspect almost everyone will. We'll send it to the Senate, and we hope it's corrected. Thank you for the time, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
Gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
I'm yielding to Mr. Gomez for the sole purpose of making a parliamentary inquiry.
Mr. Gomez is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask a point of parliamentary inquiry. Is this an appropriate time to point out that the Republicans named children's savings account in their so-called one big beautiful bill after Donald Trump, someone connected to one of the most notorious pedophiles in this country, or that the Speaker of the House just lied on the floor by stating that there was protections, there isn't protections for the victims in the Epstein bill.
The gentleman is no longer recognized. The gentleman from Maryland, you are recognized.
Thank you. I am prepared to close. I've got no more speakers on my side.
The gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. No.
Gentleman from Ohio has 30 seconds.
Can I inquire how much time is remaining?
30 seconds. Six minutes, 15 seconds.
Take 30 his.
We reserve.
Gentleman reserved. Gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
I'll take the opportunity of the Speaker's presence to respond to some of the things that he said. In the very presence of the victims and the survivors who come to join us today, the Speaker said that now would be a time we should be working on urgent legislative work. Mr. Speaker, justice is urgent legislative work. The truth is urgent legislative work. The Speaker says, why now? Why now? Well, Mr. Speaker, you were the one who refused to swear in Adelita Grijalva for 50 days. We would have done it 50 days ago, but she provided the 218th signature on the discharge petition. So why now? It was because of your dilatory tactics, your delay, your postponement of it. Now, The gentleman says that there are not sufficient protections. There are protections in the bill for the victims to make sure that their names will be redacted. And yet we hear even the Speaker of the House of Representatives openly inviting the U.S. Senate to start finger painting on this bill, which we have waited more than 5 months to bring to the floor. The Senate should pass the bill exactly as it's written. The President should sign it exactly as he said he would when he finally changed his mind. And the Epstein file must be released. Moreover, if the President is serious about what he's saying, he's got the power to release the Epstein file right now. Nobody's stopping him. It's within his possession. It's within his control. He can release the whole thing, and he can redact the names of the victims and others who are innocent in this process. Mr. Speaker, Speaker Johnson said that these are unspeakable evils. Well, because of the bravery and the invincible courage of the women who've joined us today, they're no longer unspeakable. They're spoken. They're articulated. The cat is out of the bag, and we know what's been going on for decades. It's been a double standard of justice, going all the way back to Alex Acosta, who later got rewarded with a cabinet appointment in the Trump administration. Alex Acosta had a 60-count federal indictment ready to go against all kinds of people for an interstate sex trafficking conspiracy with solicitation, with child sex abuse, all of it. And he traded that 60-count federal indictment for 1 count in state court. And Jeffrey Epstein ended up getting the sweetest of sweetheart deals ever on the plea bargain front. He was free from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. to do whatever he wanted and continuing to perpetrate his crimes and run his conspiracy, and then he would come and he would watch TV and spend the night in jail. And it was over in about a year after the rape and sexual abuse of hundreds and hundreds of girls, and he kept going, and he kept at it. We want the whole truth to come out. This is the United States of America. Even the British monarchy wouldn't put up with this. How about the American democracy? How about we say, no way, we're not going to allow this cover-up to go on for 1 day more. And I'm glad the President changed his mind after pulling out all the stops to try to get one of our Republican colleagues to change their mind, to remove their name from the discharge petition. He gave up. And I want to salute the gentlelady from Colorado from having the courage to stand her ground in the Situation Room in the White House and say, no, she wasn't going to be bullied. No. So I'm glad the President changed his mind. But let's be clear, Mr. President, you've got the power today to release the entire file. That's what you called for. That's what Pam Bondi called for. That's what Kash Patel called for. So we don't need anybody calling for the Senate to slow things down for more weeks and more months. The American people have had it. We'll reserve.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman is reminded to direct your comments to the chair and not your colleagues. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized, and you do have 90 seconds remaining. Correction.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield 30 seconds to the gentleman from Texas.
Gentleman from Texas is recognized.
The Democrat Party, with help from the dishonest media, used the Epstein files not to seek justice from the victims, but to smear President Trump. And it's sickening, quite sickening. The Democrats have used the Epstein files to distract the American people from the wins President Trump and his administration have delivered for the American people for the last 11 months. I'm proud to work with my Republican colleagues on the House Oversight Committee in coordination with the Justice Department. 65,000 pages of documents are related from Epstein released. What have my Democrat colleagues done? They selectively leaked and altered documents to mislead the American people. As President Trump has stated, we have nothing to hide here. I'm voting to release the files so that we can move on from this smear campaign the Democrats have manufactured. God bless
Gentleman's
Donald J.
time
Trump.
has expired. Gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Ohio reserves. Gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
All right. How much time do I have to close?
You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I want to thank all of America for tuning in to this. I want to thank Representatives Massey and Khanna, Representative Green, all of those who have insisted upon bringing the truth forward and a reckoning with the reality of one of the worst international child sex trafficking rings ever to exist in the United States, and the cover-up attendant to it. We've got the opportunity today to do justice for the victims, for the survivors who have come forward to say that the voice of the victims and the survivors must be put at the very center of our deliberations. Not shunted off to the side, not submerged, not subordinated, but put at the very center. We must hear from the people who themselves were victimized by this nightmare. Now, our colleagues across the aisle seem to want to make this into some sort of partisan contest. I haven't heard so much talk about the Democrats since the Democratic National Convention. And all that we've done here is to say we want to bring the truth forward, along with a bipartisan group. We don't want the Senate monkeying around with this in order to slow things down. We want it passed in the Senate. We want it signed. And before that, if the president is true to his word and he wants to see all of this come to light, he can release it now, instead of fighting, kicking, and screaming every step along the way. But I'm glad he's changed his mind, and I hope he maintains the momentum he's got to stick with the vast majority of the American people who want to see that the truth is done here. And while he's at it, the administration could reconsider their terrible policies gutting federal offices and programs designed to combat violence against women. The DOJ terminated hundreds of grants to police departments, defunding the police when it comes to investigating violent sex crimes and to support victims. His DOJ destroyed programs to combat international human trafficking rings. Let's get back on the side of the women. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Speaker Johnson said it right. Why now after 4 years of doing nothing? Because going after President Trump is an obsession with these guys. Best example is John Brennan testified in front of our committee under oath, said he was not involved with the dossier. Only problem is Tulsi Gabbard declassified a report, released that report, and it said exactly the opposite. And she related a story in there where a CIA official went up to Mr. Brennan and said, we shouldn't include this in the report. And John Brennan's response was, yeah, but doesn't it ring true? Forget the facts, forget the truth, go after Trump, put it in. Same dynamic at work here. We're all for protecting innocent victims. We're all for exposing the bad guys who did bad things. But this is an obsession with the left. For 10 years, it's going after President Trump. So vote yes. Make sure the bad guys are held accountable. We all want to do that. Speaker Johnson's right. I think it's going to be unanimous. But understand what they're doing, because they had 4 years and didn't do a darn thing. With that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill, H.R. 4405? Those in favor, say aye. Those opposed, say no. In the opinion of the chair, two-thirds being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended. The bill is passed, and without
Can I request
objection,
a recorded vote, Mr. Speaker?
The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Yeah, I'm requesting a recorded vote.
The gentleman from Maryland has requested a recorded vote. Those favoring a recorded vote will rise. A sufficient number having risen, a recorded vote is ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. Pursuant to Clause 9 of Rule 20, this 15-minute vote on the motion to suspend the rules will be followed by 5-minute votes on ordering the previous question on House Resolution 879, adoption of House Resolution 879 if ordered, and adoption of House Resolution 878. This is a 15-minute vote. On this vote, the yeas are 427, the nays are 1. 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended, the bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Pursuant to Clause 8, Rule 20, the unfinished business is the vote on ordering the previous question on House Resolution 879, on which the yeas and nays are ordered. The clerk will report the title of the resolution.
House Calendar Number 47, House Resolution 879. Resolution providing for consideration of the joint resolution, Senate Joint Resolution 80, providing for congressional disapproval under Chapter 8 of Title 5 United States Code of the rules submitted by the Bureau of Land Management relating to National Petroleum Reserve in Alaska Integrated Activity Plan Record of Decision, providing for consideration of the joint resolution, House Joint Resolution 130, providing for congressional disapproval under Chapter 8 of Title 5 United States Code of the rules submitted by the Bureau of Land Management relating to Buffalo Field Office Record of Decision and approved Resource Management Plan Amendment, providing for consideration of the joint resolution, House Joint Resolution 131, providing for congressional disapproval under Chapter 8 of Title 5 United States Code of the rules submitted by the Bureau of Land Management relating to Coastal Plain Oil and Gas Leasing Program Record of Decision, providing for consideration of the concurrent resolution, House Concurrent Resolution 58, denouncing the horrors of socialism, providing for consideration of the bill, H.R. 1949, to repeal restrictions on the export of import of natural gas, providing for consideration of the bill, H.R. 3109, to require the Secretary of Energy to direct the National Petroleum Council to issue a report with respect to the petrochemical refineries in the United States and for other purposes, providing for consideration of the bill, H.R. 5107, to repeal the Comprehensive Policing and Justice Reform Amendment Act of 2022, enacted by the District of Columbia Council, providing for consideration of the bill, H.R. 5214, to require mandatory pretrial and post-conviction detention for crimes of violence and dangerous crimes and require mandatory cash bail for certain offenses that pose a threat to the public safety or order in the District of Columbia and for other purposes
The question is on ordering the previous question. Members will record their vote by electronic device. This is a 5-minute vote.